the last
Okay, Fernando, it's 4:30. Are we ready to start rolling?
We are good to go, Your Honor.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll call this special meeting of the Porterville City Council to order. Please proceed with roll call.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Present.
Councilmember Peñalosa, Councilmember Stowe,
here.
Vice Mayor Flores,
Present.
Mayor Reyes.
Present. Thank you very much. And if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Stowe.
Thank you very much. If you all would salute and pledge. I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
to the
States
United States of America and to the republic which
which
stands
stands
one nation under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty, and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Amen.
Thank you. And actually, we'll just remain standing for just a moment. We'll do a brief moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, it's now oral communications. It's time to address the city council on any matter of interest, whether on the agenda or not. Please address all items not scheduled for public hearing at this time, unless Additional time is authorized by the council. All commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment?
Your Honor, we have received no public comments for tonight. I will indicate that there are 2 attendees that are indicating that they're raising their hand to go ahead and speak. I can go ahead and bring them in one by one.
Yes, please do so.
Okay. We have Brock Neely coming in right now. Give me one moment.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
In this issue that's being brought before you today, I noticed that there can be some conflicts with the event and the lease agreement with the barn. One way I can think of alleviating the problems is for them to estimate what their annual costs of their utilities are, submit for one of those CARES grants for nonprofits, and not have to have these fundraisers. And then also do a reorganization forthwith as their bylaws require. And the other thing, to put things in perspective, the number of people that have died of COVID is the city of Fresno. Think of that. The city of Fresno wiped off the map. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Thank you. Hello, good evening.
Hi, my name's Melanie Tyler. I was just getting in because Denise Everhart from the Barn Theater wanted to talk to you guys, but she's not being able to get in through the link. So she's trying to get in right now. So I don't know if you just wanted to wait for her to try to get in. So.
Okay, I think we'll probably bring her in when the item comes up, if we have questions about the item.
Actually just came in as an attendee and has her hand raised if you'd like for her to come in.
Okay. Please.
Hi, Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm Denise, and yes, I just was having trouble getting on, so I just want to make sure that I did not miss my opportunity to speak with you. So I just wanted to say hello, and when you're ready for me, let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there any other public comment before we
Looks as though as Mayor Reyes might be experiencing technical difficulties.
Did he log off and try to
I think
log
we
on?
lost him. I think he's having to try to log back on, it looks like.
Okay.
The mayor indicates he's trying to re-enter. I don't know. Fernando, are you seeing him?
No, on my end, I don't see him trying to log back in. He should just be able to pop right back in after he logs out.
It would appear he's in the attendee.
Right, you need to convert him to from an attendee to a panelist, Fernando. There he is. Yay.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. The internet in my whole entire house went down, so I'm on my on cellular. So I apologize for that. I know we were about to get to the one and only scheduled matter for the evening.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And thank you for the council's time this evening and the calling of this special meeting to consider approval of a community civic event for the Barn Theater for a pop-up vendor fundraiser requested to be scheduled for this coming Saturday, February 27th, 2021. As presented in its application, that this event would happen at its location at 42 South Plano Street this coming Saturday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. The event is requested so that it can assist in raising funds for the Barn Theater and continuing its work for live local community theater. The applicant commits to following all state mandated COVID-19 guidelines. It should be noted that the current license agreement between the city and the Barn Theater does not allow for the profit of any individual enterprise, which City Council would need to be considering us with a particular action in the approval of this event to also override that agreement language and allowing the requested vendors to operate. The application was considered by all departments as well as was considered by the City Council's COVID-19 ad hoc committee. And requested documents have been presented and there's comments that have been provided on behalf of the departments. Department representatives are available to answer any questions the council may have. Staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Does any of the council have any questions for staff before we ask the applicant any questions?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes,
just-
please.
Just for process purposes, since this is the first time I'm attending a special meeting, I did review the packet and the items. So do we go through the application or anything that may not be here? And or how does the process go from here?
And I appreciate the question. So with the if you have any questions that are related to the completeness of the application, you can ask staff if they've received items that you may identify as something that you didn't see, or reinforce what you do see to ask details about what's included in the application. And once you're satisfied with finding out whether the details have been sufficiently admitted with the application, then we can ask the applicant how they will address that if she chooses to proceed with us considering the matter. Councilmember Stowe, did you have any questions for staff before we have questions for Denise Everhart?
Thank you, Your Honor. No, I don't.
Okay. Vice Mayor, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
I just have one for legal counsel because I'm being an analytical on the license agreement and where the wording pertains does not allow for the profit of any individual or enterprise. Could you clarify that for me just a tiny bit, please?
Well, I mean, I think the intent here was that they weren't going to engage in any for-profit activities. Now, the nonprofit isn't necessarily engaging in a for-profit activity because anything it does for fundraising still falls within the nonprofit. However, there is an issue here because this could mean also that it goes beyond just what they're doing, but those that are on the premises. And so that's the issue. And that's probably where there's clarification needed or potentially a revision to the agreement. I mean, and I guess it comes to this. If you guys are going to allow this just one time here, and the Barn Theater understands that under its agreement that this generally would not be allowed as a continuing activity, you guys can go ahead and do that this time. If they're going to want to engage in this to the extent it serves as a fundraiser for the nonprofit, then I think the council will want to consider prospectively making an amendment or considering an amendment to the license agreement that would clarify that, because right now it does read pretty, it's actually, and I went through it even before the meeting. There's a couple places where it mentions that for-profit activities are not to be going on the property. So, I mean, I think that there's definitely potential if the council so desires to clarify that and allow for a limited number of fundraising activities that involve, private vendors, retail activities happening that then in turn, result in the nonprofit raising funds so that it effectively serves as a fundraiser for the nonprofit so that it can continue its activities. But I think that you would definitely want to consider clarifying that. I mean, the other option is that the Barn Theater would have, if they wanted to do these kinds of activities, would need to do it not on the public property, on the theater property. But I think that there's definitely room there to consider changes to that prospectively if the council wants.
I appreciate that response because as I read it and I read through it and I saw that language, immediately my question was, are all the proceeds that the vendor makes going to go to the nonprofit, or are they going to gain by this versus it going to the nonprofit? So thank you very much.
I'm going to go out on a limb if I had to answer that and say, and I'm sure that the Barn Theater people can provide clarification onto that point, but I'm pretty sure that it's a portion of the proceeds of the vendors are going to go, is going to go to the theater. And I think that you could certainly, especially if this is going to happen prospectively, the council can decide, that needs to be a part of the requirement, that you can't just, simply rent it out for private vendors to use, and that's how you're making your funds. I think there needs to be, you definitely needs to be something in furtherance of the nonprofits to be consistent with just the agreement itself. I mean, the agreement, it says over and over again that the intention is for the Barn Theater to operate a theater, on the premises. I think some ancillary fundraising activities would be probably, expected, and that you guys might want to consider how to make that work. But I think, there are lines that you probably don't want to cross too.
Well, I understand and I appreciate it. That helps. Thank you so much. I have nothing else.
And if I may, just kind of an addendum to that, we've had code enforcement activities on this property and not at the permission of the Barn Theater, but mobile phone vendors have been at this location from time to time, which we've taken code enforcement efforts to have them cease operations.
Your Honor, if I may, I do have one question.
Yes, please.
If all the nonprofits that are listed, do they have a 501c3? Or are they required to have one or just call themselves a nonprofit?
Are you referring to the, on the list
vendor.
of,
Yes, the vendor list. I'm sorry.
that's a good question. And I think that even nonprofits, if they're operational in the city, have to have some sort of business license. And I believe there's no cost associated with that.
That's correct.
Otherwise, I think there may have to be, to waive that fee, there may have to be some proof of application or something that proves that they would be, because it is a process to achieve that status.
That is correct. It is a part of the business license process that if it is a nonprofit, there is no fee for the business license. It's a $0 fee with verification of their valid nonprofit status.
So our staff has validated all the nonprofits. John, you would think, or that was on the vendors list?
Well, that's part of this process of the applicant providing the names and verifying. I guess I would defer to Maria to the extent they verified all the licenses. And there may be additional ones that occur up until the date of the event.
Okay.
Mayor,
But that would be part of the action, is that all folks would have to be licensed, appropriately licensed.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the vendors will only be required the $1 business license fee for temporary events, like temporary permit, like what we do with other community civic events, where they only pay the $1 if they are not the usual business in the city, or they don't usually do business within the city. So.
Okay. And if none of the other members of council have a question, I had a question about the necessity of restrooms at an event that's a civic event, since it's open to the public. I know that usually it's outdoors and that there's porta potties. Is that a requirement to have access to restrooms?
Typically, that's a requirement of the council for events, that there be access to public restrooms under its community civic events. So there would need to be provision of lavatory services, whether that be by available restrooms made available or porta potties.
Okay, thank you. Council, is there any more questions for staff before we bring the applicant for some questions?
Mayor, I had one. I noted that in our meeting, but also the map that was provided, that there was 6 feet apart from each vendor. And then there was a recommendation from the fire marshal to have that distance be 12 feet. So I don't know if that was adjusted. That was another note that I had here.
Okay. And I appreciate that comment. And I think, so we can probably bring the applicant forward. I think she probably had access to some of the staff notes that were attached to the application. So at this point, if council members, we can start with that question from Councilmember Carrillo and any others she has for Denise Everhart at this time.
Your Honor, if I will, it appears that Denise, it looked like she got out. She might be having some technical difficulties, but we have Melanie Tyler in the attendees list who may be speaking on her behalf. I'm not entirely sure, but I can bring her in to talk.
Sure. Let's see if
Hello, I have Denise with me actually, because she got kicked off, so she's going to talk to you.
Great.
Hi, Council.
Yes, I did get kicked off. I do want to say thank you so much for taking your time and the consideration for this, because this is a very important event for our theater. A few questions that I heard you talk about that I do want to address is that the social distancing that was required by the CDC guidelines were 6 feet apart, but we had already planned the event for the vendors to be 10 feet apart from each other. Adjusting the 2 feet to make it 12 feet apart is totally doable, and that's something that we can look into. We also will have restrooms available that will be manned by barn theater volunteers that will be completely disinfected in between people that use it. We have 4 restrooms that can be used. We also are having the local germ busters come in, and they are doing a complete sanitation before the event and after the event, free of charge for us, as just a way to kind of get their name out there, but also to make our vendors and the patrons that come, to make them feel safe for what they're doing. If I can answer any other questions for you at this time, I'd be more than happy to.
Sure. We can start with Councilmember Carrillo if you have any additional questions.
Yes. I think one of them was just confirming that this is a one-time event, because I think, you know, one of the things that the council and the city manager and staff did was, on all of these applications, are trying to move very timely for the community and the businesses. What made this a little more complicated is this agreement that's in place. So, you know, if a decision is made to, you know, be able to allow this for this one time, that's one thing. And then if it continues, then we're going to have a whole different discussion, right? So I guess my question would just be a confirmation that this is a one-time event.
This is our first one that we're going to attempt with it. We would like this to be a more regular event, because it would bring in more money for not only our community, but for the barn as well. I'm not saying necessarily on a regular basis as far as like every 2, 3, or 4 weeks, but we definitely would like to continue to do this for funds to come in. This event alone is a guaranteed $600 for us, which doesn't sound like a lot of money for most nonprofits, but it will be enough to help pay some of our monthly bills. So we were hoping that having this event on a more regular basis would allow us to make more money to be able to put toward our outstanding bills.
And so I'm assuming, Mayor, that those future potential events would have to go through a process as well.
And that's part of, after the question period we have, that'll be part of our deliberation to talk about how we approach that. But I think that your assessment of it, at least in the short term, being a one-time look, but we'll let the other questions unfold, and then when we proceed to the deliberation, we can set the course forward for how we want to proceed.
Okay, I may have another question, but for right now, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Stowe, did you have any questions?
I did, Your Honor. As I mentioned before, and since Mrs. Everhart's on here, are all the nonprofits truly nonprofits that's listed on the vendors list?
The nonprofits that are listed on the vendor list would be the Porterville Garden Club, which is a nonprofit, which they are simply having a table to hand out information to recruit more members, and the Barn Theater is the nonprofit. We also have, both of us maintain our up-to-date city business license, which was mentioned. Yes, it is free of charge for nonprofits. We both have that. And in the packet, I also included a segment that any of the vendors that are not from Porterville, that do not have a Porterville City license, business license, that the $1 charge for those for the event will be paid by the Barn Theater at the close of the event, which would be, you know, that day we would pay the city the $1 vendor fee for those that do not have a city business license.
Okay, thank you. But on the list, you had nonprofits, and you indicated them, but there was one that there was a Denise Foods, which doesn't sound, and I never heard of it, but Never, doesn't sound like a
That's-
nonprofit.
That's actually me. I'm sorry. That should have been corrected on there. That's me.
Oh,
We as
okay.
Barn Theater, I am the food safety manager. I have my certificate and the food handler certificate, and I will be. We're selling hot dog meals that day for the Barn Theater on behalf of the Barn Theater. That's the
Okay.
nonprofit. Sorry, I apologize for not the clarification on that.
All right. I was going to say, it didn't sound like a nonprofit to me, but okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
And if I may, Your Honor, and I guess that's a good segue, Tulare staff did contact Tulare County Health and Human Services with regards to status of permits. Tulare County Health and Human Services said that the barn does have a valid permit, but under the guidelines would only be able to do takeout. I would say takeout food. So there's not a food service that can be provided. It can only be done via takeout.
Yes, it will all be for takeout only. We will not have even tables and chairs set up because we don't want to encourage anyone to sit down. It will be set up in a box type lunch that they can take with them.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor, did you have any questions?
First of all, I want to say hi to Denise and for being here with us this evening. I do have
Hi,
some
Ms.
questions.
Martha.
I do have some questions. When I looked at the list of vendors, it's approximately 25 vendors that are listed, and your map allocation is an allowance for 20. What is the
Go
difference?
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Martha. I'm sorry.
No, that was one of my questions, because if all the vendors that are listed and your map is only for 20, the overflow, and that's something that arose my curiosity.
When I went to turn in the map originally, I had printed out a Google Map aerial view of the Barn Theater. I had marked in Sharpie the areas. I had marked in black Sharpie the areas where it was going to be. When I turned it in there, the gal who accepted it told me that that was unacceptable and that I could not turn in that, and I had to hand draw a map on the back of my aerial map of the Google Maps to turn in. So the sites that you saw on there were hastily drawn so that I could turn that application in, because I was not aware that a hand-drawn map would be better than an actual aerial view of the barn. So I apologize if the sizing doesn't seem correct. If we hold this event outside and we do follow the 12 feet that was suggested by the city fire marshal, we can easily fit 25 to 30 plus vendors out on the grass with the social distancing happening and just having the one entrance and exit, so that we are keeping everyone contained in small amounts so that we aren't overcrowded.
Thank you. And I know there was a touch on food and the vendors, and I understand that the takeout food, but let me ask this question. For the outside vendors that are having food products, is it specifically also for takeout?
Yes, it is all sealed foods. There's nothing that is being made fresh on site except for what we are making, and it's just a hot dog meal that will be sent off in a box, as it like a box lunch.
Okay.
The baked goods are all sealed in bags. They're loaves and they're cookies, and they're all sealed. Nothing is open aired. Everything is sealed to be taken off.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, I apologize.
no, that's okay. Thank you very much. And I do have a question, because this has to go with perhaps guidelines and COVID. Is there going to be any face painting done at this event?
No, we have a face painter who is listed on there. She is selling she does balloon animals that go on top of candy cups.
It's from
and she will be
Cincinnati,
selling
it's
those.
not from Fernando. So sometimes
I'm sorry.
No, I heard another, that's okay.
Okay.
So there is not going to be face painting at this event?
No, there is not.
Okay, that helps understand because I was a little concerned that if there was that to that regard with regard to, you know, the guidelines and the
Right.
touching of a person's face with regard to
Exactly.
everything.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
And first of all, I want to say again, thank you, but I have a question. When I look at the letter that was submitted as an attachment, the Barn Theater Board of Directors, how large is your board and who are the Board of Directors?
We have a board right now of 15 members. We are in process of finishing up a new section of bylaws to be approved by our membership so that we may have a new election for new set of officers that will happen hopefully in April. We have 15 members. I am the president of the board. Our vice president is Vicky Cervantes. Our treasurer is Katie Blevins. And our recording secretary is Chrissy Bunch. Wesley Cox is our other secretary, I can't think of his corresponding secretary. Board members, we have Susan Uptain, Charles Hickenbotham, we have Ralph Bourne, Bob Merzoyan, we have Ambry Boo, we have Susan Uptain, we have Wendy Playstead, we have Steve Ross, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody that I can't think of. And I'm really sorry. We just recently we lost our dear Nikki Edwards, so we will have some openings for new board members.
Thank you.
And in fact, yes, and actually, almost I think every single one of our board members is going to be involved in helping and volunteering for this event, except for one because he lives over at the coast part-time and he won't be in town.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's just that I was wanting to know who the board was. It was something that I had seen the letter and it drew my attention as to who was the board because it's submitted from the board of directors. I don't have any further questions for the moment, but reserve probably comment for later, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I did have a question about the other food items that were there, understanding that they're all sealed,
Yes.
but also the county has requirements for even prepackaged food. Have those vendors been able to apply and obtain the certificates for prepackaged food sales?
Yes. And I can get a copy of those also to turn in for the next time. I mean, I can try to get it to you prior to the event this weekend.
Well, and I don't know that that's necessary because they're actually required to post those on their booth the day of.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
and
they
that
do.
would,
Yeah.
that would be something that as code enforcement would observe that everything's being followed. One of the things that they would definitely look for. So I just wanted to make sure and ask about that up front because there's
Sure.
usually
No, I totally understand.
there's usually a 2-week turnaround to do that. So hopefully, things are already in the works. So are there any other questions that the council has for the applicant before we go to deliberate? Okay.
I would like to
hear
say something though, if I can.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows it is very, very important to me personally, as being a representative of the Barn Theater, that all COVID guidelines are being met. I recently closed my business partially due to COVID, but I 100% believe in this and I follow all these guidelines daily. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that all those guidelines are going to be met and that there are not going to be any exceptions for it. So it's really important to me that you understand that we're trying to do everything we can to make everybody safe and comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council. Do we have any discussion? Or a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application.
Is there a second?
I'll second, and I would like to reserve time for a comment at the end.
Sure. With a motion and a second, we can have a discussion period and of course time to amend that. But is there any discussion about the application?
I would like to have a discussion.
Sure, please proceed.
And it would be with regard, we heard that the motion was made for this event. However, if there's going to be other events that are foreseen, we know that this contract has to be rewritten to accommodate those future events. And the wording has to be looked into. And that's sort of where we can do it for the one time, but if it's going to happen again, it would have to be brought back again. And do we want to do that? Or do we look into it and say we can go ahead and have this event subject to the future discussion and modification of this agreement to incorporate the verbiage with regard to the not-for-profit and go with that?
Can I make a recommendation on that? Would you like me to, Vice Mayor?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I would just suggest maybe one way to approach this is to go ahead and grant, since you've got a motion, if you want to consider the motion to approve this one event. And I'm guessing the Barn Theater may want to see how the event goes. And then if they're wanting to do it again, or they're wanting to make it a more regular, they can then let the city know that they would like an amendment considered. And then we could proceed from there, because I think you're right. I fully would recommend that if there's going to be more events like this, that the agreement be addressed so that there's not just these continual waivers of a provision, a pretty prominent provision in the agreement. So that'd be and I don't know, I mean, that's just a suggestion to get this moving forward.
Well, and I appreciate that, because that's the clarification what needed to be brought out, because I do agree with that. And that's all I'm going to say. That's all I have to say as far as my comment.
Thank you. And Councilmember Stowe, I just want to clarify that your motion was for this one event?
That's correct, Your Honor. Only just for this single event.
Okay. And so I'll add my comment too, is that even in the course of this one discussion tonight with this one item, even the subject of a bylaw change, even within the contract, those things are supposed to be submitted to the city. And even looking at the commercial aspect and the for-profit aspect, it is so, and it is in a few places throughout the entire document, so much so that I believe the entire document needs to be looked at rather than just an item pertaining to those, because it is so pervasive throughout the entire document regarding the commercial aspects. So those are my concerns. But if it's for this one event, I think with those exceptions that we've already noted and the questions we've already had answered, that I'm satisfied with the discussion. Are there any other comments before we call for the vote? Councilmember Carrillo, did you have any other?
Yes, I guess, my comment would just be, first of all, thank you, ladies. I didn't get the opportunity to meet you just on here and reading your documents and the staff's work to follow up. These are challenging decisions because first and foremost is the safety of our public and our community. So, but we want to try to make available opportunities. So I just want to tell you ladies that, this is a big responsibility, and we take it serious when making decisions and trying to put things into place so that you can have an event. And please just try to look into, if there is anything in the future, look into the process timely. That way you don't feel rushed. or feel that you're filling out wrong paperwork or anything like that. That way, you know, we could go through the process also timely. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, council. So we can go ahead and do a roll call vote for the motion and the second.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Flores,
Aye.
Mayor Reyes.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you so much. I appreciate the time that you've all taken out of your very busy schedules to meet today and to speak with me and allow me to get in touch with you. The Barn Theater greatly appreciates you.
Great. Thank you, and good luck with the event.
Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay. That was the one event. So staff, are we clear to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, I believe so. We've I think staff has to go to another meeting now. We have to talk in a couple minutes. So appreciate, again, I can't say enough, appreciate the council's time this evening, and appreciate the applicant's time.
Great, thank you, and appreciate the patience in letting me get back. It's the first time I've had to use my phone for Zoom, but I'm fortunate that it worked, even though it looks a lot different than it does on the computer. So thank you, and
Here, same here.
yeah,
You're just a little bit smaller.
yeah. Hopefully taller. I don't know.
You're taller. Yep.
Everybody take care.
Thank you.
All
Meeting
right.
adjourned.
Bye. Take
I gotta-
care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
I got to get back to softball practice. See you guys. Have a good evening.